So I'm always in a kind of, you can say, trance. I find for those who feel like they just don't fit in, people might say like just fuck it, but it takes more than just saying it. Um, One of the things that I've come to learn about, and a few years ago kind of just have felt like I don't want to reveal anything, is the fact that um, I've had to have this, I don't know what to call it. It's a very sort of like, very deeply entrenched sort of like wall. Like, it's like, I mean, that's why I like dark humor. Because humor helps a lot with the whole processing of pain and trauma. And mind you, I believe, well, I don't know, I haven't been diagnosed with this, but I believe I have something like CPTSD, which is complex. It's from childhood experience. Like, I mean, I don't have like crazy, insane trauma, like, what people might think is trauma. Like, as if it's like I need to be like in an accident, or I've lost a limb or something like that. I have hearing loss here, and I do have what's called Meniere's disease for those who haven't seen the channel. Oh, and hello, my name is Jose. So, um, it's I don't know how to explain this. I mean, I'll show you in like a description of it in my chart. I can do that, but if you look at my older videos, go and check it out. Like I talked about a little bit about myself there, but it goes much more than that. Like, I mean, the thing with astrology is like, you've seen, for those who have seen my channel, they've seen that I do astrology stuff, and that it can be kind of cold, right? So my experience about this whole thing is that I've always kind of felt not just out of place, but even out of place with out of places, out of place, like out of place in out of place places. So for example, like sometimes even within like um, spiritual communities like the one I'm in, there's a part that I sense right away that it's like I'm not, like I just don't kind of necessarily fit in, because fitting in is kind of relative, right? But I think I've come to terms with that. But how I came to terms with that is like this long process, and I'm still dealing with it once in a while. Like just the other day, I was talking to my mom. No, this was yesterday. Sorry, I was talking to my mom, and she was saying, "I'm worried about you, what you do with your life, da 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 da." People who kind of bring you down. Not necessarily that that's their intention. That's their thing, right? That's their thing. It has nothing to do with you. It's their thing. It's their pain. It's their struggles. It's their worries. It's their. We all have ego. So the way I do it is just like, I kind of just like, and I have this strong sort of sense that we've known for quite a long time that I don't take bullshit from people. But that's a cover up. That's a cover up because it's trying to put up a wall, right? I put up a wall because it's just, there's a part of me that still feels like, you have to do more than what you think you're doing. I have like this expectation that I still have, which I shouldn't expect of certain people, but it's and it could be quite lonely because sometimes there are things that I just know, And I think this is why certain people like in the world, especially people like Teal Swan, for example, she get called out for things that, well, people think that she doesn't know, or like she claims this and all that stuff. But I was like, well, really, if you think about it, she's just sharing what she knows, and she's very, she's sure of what she knows, and take it or leave it. The point is not to just look at the surface level of things, but we tend to do that, right? Judging a book by its cover. Sometimes we're so good at it that it's like we forget we're doing it. That's kind of the whole thing. I think it's just a matter of being. That's the thing. I've learned to really be present. So how does this whole work? This whole thing, like fitting in where you don't fit in, even trying to fit in where you don't, where it's already like people who don't fit in. So being an outsider within an outsider community, or what is called like the woo-woo stuff, right? I don't. I try not to anymore. That's what I do. But what has really helped is, I can't stress this so many times already. One of my processes is one. To me, meditation by itself is not enough. At least when I started, it wasn't enough. Because I tried meditating before, and I could, but there was something missing. There was something physical missing. I needed something physical, as in I needed something that was something that can ground me, like literally physically. It's not a thought thing. And here's the thing about myself, that I'm so weird, especially with the way I communicate. I think a lot of people feel that, or either they either like me or they don't like me. That's how it works. It's either this or this. There's nothing in between. It's just, I've never seen that. And it could also be like speculation, but the thing is, one of the things I've been learning recently is validation, and that's really important. I think what people need to go through in order to process things is to be validated. Not necessarily for their beliefs or what they think of things, or whether they're right or wrong. No. They need to be heard, accepted, validated. And I think a lot of people kind of miss that. We're so caught up in reacting right away. There's a lot of people that still react, right? And especially when but the people they come across who are just trying to be expressive, or rather they don't know how to go about with that whole being expressive, or they don't know how to express themselves properly. What is proper? You express yourself in your own way, and I think really one of the best ways is to shut up and listen. When I say shut up and listen, I don't mean I don't mean like don't say anything. I mean taking the time to pause and really just be there. For most people, that's still hard, right? I mean, I've seen this before, where even people I've met that are spiritual, they have this responsiveness right away. They're responsive, they're reactive. Not necessarily reactive, but they have always something to say. And I think, I feel like I've gotten so much of that growing up. My dad, he's never really learned how to listen. Even today, like the way he says things, the way they say things, like they don't know what it is to not necessarily listen, but also to validate. They don't know the tools for it. So one of the best ways for me, and is what I've come to learn, is to, instead of telling people what to do, which I kind of don't want to do anymore anyways, is be an example. Right, so to fit in, be an example. And you will not worry about fitting in, because you're just being completely yourself. Like one of the things I find that, here's a couple of things I'll tell you right now. the things I find that are, for me, in order for to be myself, I would need to be able to express what I'm feeling. Usually it's a feeling-based thing. Go through it in a way that I can, and depending on my level of consciousness and awareness of how to handle that and the tools that I have. Because it used to be before, I would just express it and just like swear and all that stuff, right? But as I got better, one of the things I learned is really to just allow myself to go through it, whether or not somebody's validating it or not. But that's just like a layer that I just added, that just got added recently. So that's that, being able to express myself fully, or help, allow me to process it by allowing me to go through the story. Personally, I don't like going with people who just, they don't know how to listen. I can't, that's one of the things. It's like when I see listen, I'm talking about empathic and empathetic listening, right? It's really not just about being present, but it is about being present. Really, that's all it comes down to. But sometimes that skill has to be developed, or rather, it has to be practiced. Maybe it's a skill, maybe it's not. The point is, I personally, I get confused by labels. That's one of the things I'm going to be honest about. That's just kind of maybe the second thing. I like to kind of do things impromptu. It might be confusing for some people, but that's one of the things. I like to things to work through things naturally. I got tired of listing things down and making things super organized, unless I really have to, like for my astrology stuff, like the asteroids I'm working on. I organize those because those are written. But the moment I start talking about emotions, especially emotions, they have to come through. They have to be expressed. They have to be processed. They have to be allowed to just be. And yeah, so that's that. So the expression, being able to process the emotions, that's one big one. There was a second one, but I don't think that was the second one. The second one is being like expression. I want to be able to just be in the moment, and actually, to be honest, like in silence. I think I've always fought this, though. Like I think that's one of the things I'm starting to realize to myself, that if I can accept silence, not like literal silence, and lack of communication, because that's what I grew up with. When I say lack of communication, it's a lack of empathetic connection, that transmission. I don't know if that makes sense to any of you, but it's like flow. It's almost like you can feel what I'm feeling and think what I'm thinking. So it's both empathetic and telepathic. Most people will say like, "What the fuck?" It's like, no, that's real. Is that real? So I don't know, but to me it feels like that. I've always been able to sense people's feelings, and like their body language says a lot. Their intonation too. Facial expressions, it says a lot. There's something there that I sense right away. And that's kind of scary for a lot of people. It's like, what? So they put up more, either, if they have already a wall up, they make it thicker. Or if they don't, then they put a wall up. So, and it's kind of scary for some people. And I know this for a fact, that many people have reacted that way, like when I can see through them. Not out of judgment. It's not out of judgment. It's not out of judgment. It's just out of like, I can just sense it. Before it was like, yeah, absolute judgment. So yeah, I don't like the noise. I really like quiet. I think this is why I got this set here, so I can just, when I record, I can talk from a distance. I don't need to go straight to the fucking mic. Sometimes I'm gonna get a better mic eventually. The mic I have is really great. I'm really happy with it. But for the sake of these things, for you guys to be able to hear, it's just technology, right? That's what it is. I need to get a better mic. When I say better, I don't mean this. Anyways, I'm overanalyzing. And that's okay too. So if you want to overanalyze, go ahead. I think it's just about finding people who resonate with you, right? So one, being able to express myself fully. Number two, to just quiet. When I say quiet, it could be literal quiet or like, because I can sense people's energy when like there's loudness. Either they're like banging things, they're dropping things, they're just dropping things without, it's actually not present. When you're going like this and you're dropping your clothes down on the floor like that, or you're just putting things on the table, like for example, if I carried a phone, even just the way I carried a phone, it's like I pick up the phone. I have a phone, so I pick up the phone, and I just go without even really thinking about it. There's unconsciousness there, because I can sense that I'm not going through the body and sensing that it's like I can sense that I'm getting it, right? But if it's just I'm going just like, there's a sensation, there's a sort of knowing once you start practicing presence, all that stuff. And we're talking besides meditation. Meditation is part of that too, but sometimes the thing with meditation, it's a tool, it's the process, it's the doing. But the being is the one that's dominates all of it. It can actually help with things more than what we perceive it to be. So something simple as like your actions. So when it's like that, when it's not like that, when it's rushed, even sometimes when I talk and I have to rush things, like right now I can sense there's a perception that as if like I have to speak louder. Excuse me. I have to speak louder, which I'm not going to, because I don't want to. As a teacher, I already do that, and I'm laughing because it's just all these things are really earthly stuff, and it is kind of silly but not stupid. It's the funny thing. It's ironic. Being human is kind of an irony, right? So again, I don't like the noise. I don't like those kind of things. It's not the noise, it's the energy behind the noise. Like there can be noise, but mostly it's literal, like actual noise. If it's loud music, I used to listen to those kind of things. I used to have those kind of things. But even if it's loud music, when I say loud, I don't mean necessarily like volume loud. I mean the energy, you can sense it. It's angry, it's negative, or it's in your face, or it's angry. But I can understand why. I just don't want it physically, like as in like I don't want to feel it, the energy physically. I feel like I judge that too. When a lot of people who are noisy, like for example, like I live in the basement upstairs. There are people upstairs, and sometimes the way they walk, it's just do 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 do. I can hear every single footstep. Do 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 do. And you can tell it's like they're rushing. And it's just like, why in a rush? But there's that thing. It's spiritual ego. I can tell right away. It's spiritual ego because it's like, who am I to judge where they're at? Right? I'm pretty sure I do still do that a little bit. I just can't hear myself. I'm down here in the basement. So, yeah. But also going through the process itself and recognizing that in myself is part of that whole process of like allowing myself to be that, to be present. Did that make sense? I hope that made sense. What else is there? So the allowing true genuineness to come out, the quietness. There's a third one. Oh, like physical things. physiological things, like being able to just burp in public, fart in public, you know, just say, like, it's not being insensitive when it's something like a natural bodily function, because it's just what comes out. It's not offensive. We tend to confuse offensive with offensive or offensive with natural. It's like, how is it offensive if somebody's like, for example, like right now, I'm gonna fart right there. There you go. I just released one. So it's just being raw but not harmful, raw but not hurtful. So I don't know. It's just weird, especially as like this is one of the stereotypes, especially as a queer man. It's like, ooh, taboo. You cannot fart. Ooh, it's unladylike. Ooh, it's like I always found those kind of silly if people I've come across who are very serious about it. But those who kind of just joke about it, that's fine. I can understand that. That's part of it. Because if we're trying to deal with it and it's kind of awkward with the upbringing and the belief that it's like, oh, it's rude to fart in public or to burp in public or to yawn even or sneeze at someone, right? It's like, it's rude. It's, it's like, it's offensive. But really it's not. It's a natural bodily function. So it's one of those things that I just have to naturally be able to express. And being able to express it means that a lot of times I would get looks on people's faces like it's like, did you just do that? You sense, you get this, right? You get a judgment sort of thing. The ego sneaks in and it's like, okay, right? The ego will attach itself to anything that includes spiritualism, bodily functionalism, being honest, those kind of things. So yeah, there you go. I let out that other one. So it's I don't know. I just feel like one of the things, raw. It all comes down to rawness. Yeah, raw but naturally, but again, raw to myself. If people get triggered by it, so be it. I get triggered by things too, but that's what's going to make you process it. If you process it, if you learn through their thing, why are you being triggered? What is this thing? What is your shadow telling you? Right? What is it telling me? So that's one of the things. So that's one of the things. Like even in like the greater LGBT community, sometimes I felt, I've always even there I felt out of place. Is there something missing? Because I'm kind of like all in one thing. I like to be many things, right? As long as it's not harmful to anyone, as long as it's not creating more karma, or at least not, basically that. It's not creating more karma. For those who are not aware of what creating karma is, I recommend really like doing a bit of research on it. What is karma, right? Because to me, basically what karma is creating more suffering, right? Like just within this lifetime, right? It's creating more suffering. It's creating more pain. Usually it's yourself. So then you pass on the, I wouldn't necessarily say negativity, but lower emotions. You pass it on. It's not healing anymore. It's basically it's kind of like opposite of healing, if that makes any sense. I'm bound to get things wrong, so let me be wrong. That's probably the other thing about being raw. So it all comes down to being raw and real. When I say raw and real, like really raw and real. And I feel like sometimes I can't. Even just like on camera, I feel like I have to put on this facade. Like, oh, here's a camera, I have to look good and all that stuff. I don't want to. Because it's not freeing for me. Of course, it's just not appealing for many people. Maybe they just don't. Maybe it's it kind of, it doesn't promote credibility, perhaps, for some people. But I'm kind of rebellious like that. But I can understand why sometimes it might not help people if it's, if one were not presentable. If one were not presentable. But what is presentable? I think that's a conditioned state of, a mindset. It's passed on from generation, 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 generation. I think one of the things too that people, in my experience, have come to see is that because I'm typically quiet, or there's a sort of energy about me that it's like, when the intensity comes out, it's almost like they can't stand it. But I don't really let that get to me anymore. Like I work with the intensity internally. And whether or not people understand it, it's not the point. So really what it is, all in all it is for me, it's about being raw. I would say if you feel like you want to be raw with things without creating more karma, without harming anyone, without bringing yourself down, by all means, be raw. It's one of those challenges that I still go through every once in a while. But I feel like I have this sensation that it's like I can just do it now without having to defend myself. So there are times where I feel like, am I defending that? You can sense it. So it takes practice. I think that's it. Especially, I think this is kind of more like I'm trying to be rounded with about this whole thing, but it comes down to being raw. So to fit in, it's not about fitting in, because technically, it's kind of like how I see it as like the analogy of the tree and the roots or the branches and the twigs or whatever. They go one goes this way, the other one goes this way, and the other one goes this way. Right, they go their own direction. So how do you really fit in with the other branches? You're not going to fit in the other branches because we are all on our own path. But our source, which is the tree itself, the trunk, right? That's where the fitting in comes from, if that makes sense. Like, we are already fit-inny. We're fit-inny. Right? So we're infit-inny. We're infit-in. Infinite. But I'm trying to say infinite, but it's like we fit in. I don't know if that makes sense. Let me try to reword that. Okay, so fit in, infinity, whatever the wording is. So, it's just really, I'm still learning myself to just enjoy the moment. Be as raw as you can. Even if you're just the black sheep of the fucking black sheep of the black sheep of the black sheep of the black sheep. Or more. And that's okay. It can be as rare and beautiful, like as a gem. The rarest gem of all. So fitting in really, there's some points where I feel like maybe it gets triggered, but yeah, there are sometimes, right, that still happens. But I think the key is not to fit in. Just let it go. And it's easier said than done. Yes. Obviously. And yes, not just obviously, but yes, it's true. So, it's a process. You have to go through the process. So what I would say is, for me personally, I think it's being raw is important because it's like, and finding myself in the process. So, like I said, if it's not creating karma, if it's not hurting anyone, if it's not bringing you down, but when you feel low, the lower emotions, it's okay to go through that. Allow yourself to go through that instead of resisting it by saying, I don't want to feel this way because it's not spiritual. just go through it. Go through it. Go through it. Go through it. That's like one of my coaches said. The only way out is through. The only way out is through. Why? Because it's kind of like, I don't know if this is going to make sense, but it's kind of like you think about everything else in the universe, right? When something, for example, a fruit, when it rots, it doesn't complain. It just has its presence existing. It's just rotting, right? When something gets damaged, like a phone, it doesn't complain. It doesn't do anything to resist it. It's broken. When animals get hurt, they have this reaction, but they don't stop the wounding from happening. They don't stop the broken ankles and broken leg from happening. The cows don't stop when their heads get cut off. The sheeps don't stop what they're doing, like their function, this presence, this consciousness that is in them. It doesn't stop going just because someone decided to shear off the whole wool from their skin, like from their, the wool. To get wool, to get what do you call that? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. We are the only people that do complain. More like it's a complaint rather than a reaction, like a physical, natural reaction. Complaining is like prolonged reaction. That's what a complaint is. In essence, I would say. Right? It's, yeah. Yeah. So, it all comes down to just at least being, it goes down to rawness. That's the best term I can think of. Like if we were all telepathic and also empathic, like you can sense it, we would understand things much better. But language is limited. And there's always going to be like judgments. And I think even that is okay. Because it's something that we can learn from. Right? I mean, you probably have heard of this many times, but that's why I'm not really telling you what to do. I'm trying to say, this is giving you my advice. Well, no. You have to learn. You have to learn. And what I do is, maybe another thing that might help is like, as I've gone through all these processes, something tangible that you can do, and I've said this many times before. I think I kind of skipped that earlier. Wim Hof method, or at least some kind of method with cold shower and in breathing, and opening up the capillaries or whatever. For me, the Wim Hof method works. I do it every day. I've been doing it since April 7, 2020. Literally, that's my anniversary date. April 7, 2020. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say to that. So I just the point of this whole video really was to share my experience. Take it from it what you will. And I hope it kind of provides some sort of insight. Okay. Because at least for me, my journey is towards finding myself, being myself in rawness, childlikeness. I've said that a lot of times already, and I'm still going to say it. It's childlikeness. Granted that I do get pissed off sometimes still. I do project still. Shadow stuff. And it's a learning process. But you have to go through it. The only way out is through. Okay? Resistance is easy actually. But it creates nothing. Resistance creates more resistance, more damage, more pain, more suffering. But the trick about resistance, or rather being present, is that, or the essence behind it is, it creates a different energy within yourself, and therefore things start to change. It's kind of like a domino effect, like a ripple effect, right? But you start little by doing little practices if you want. But the reason I mentioned Wim Hof method before is because when you go into the cold shower, and especially if it's your first time, and you surrender to the cold, and then your body gets used to it. It's like any sort of form of conditioning. All it is really what nature is. It's conditioning, right? The splitting of cells, the creation of life, the evolution of what we develop, like nails, for example, skin. How do we go from single cell to multi-cell organisms? It's conditioning. It's the environment that conditions it, and it's on its own. But that conditioning, in its essence, is the consciousness itself. It's the one that expands. It's universe, God, source, creator, energy. And it's going to continue to go and expand and expand and expand and expand and expand and expand. Right? So, yeah, I keep mentioning the Wim Hof method. Because for me it works. I used to do some Ashtanga yoga. It was just through this free class. I forgot what it was. It was through commune website. Anyways, it was like beautiful. But one of the things one of the losses I've had to experience and really learn from is having many ears. Because it helps me be present, actually, because it means that I have to slow things down and be present. It's one of those ego like wrenching. It just like, it really just like holds you down because you want to be able to not be present. I want to be able to just move up and down. I want to be able to, let's say go back to swimming and do my flip turn and practice those. Or just compete or whatever, or something like that I used to do, right? There is a temptation to go back to the way it was before. But it can't. Because there's a reason why we have gotten these certain illnesses, diseases, and also diseases, is because we have been actually unhealthy. And that's one of my things that I've been learning too. Because it's like, it's detached, it teaches us actually to be less identified with the body. And instead of being attached to it, it's an appreciation. It's like a gift when someone gives you a gift or something you get. It's eventually gonna break down. You might lose it, whatever. Right? So everything is temporary, at least in form. Energy changes form, and that's a temporary thing. But the essence of the energy will not change. That is the one that's eternal. So how this all ties in with fitting in, it's kind of like fitting in is basically saying, I want permanence, which is not true. There's a part of us that wants to fit in, and that's true because it's true. We need to validate that because we are social creatures. We need all these experiences. We need all these like connections. And I got this from TLS1. Wonderful reminder. But to be attached to it, that's the other thing. You don't need to be attached. But how to do that is by surrendering to the impermanence, to the powerlessness. Because power is really a form of attachment. Power is a form of control. Power is a form of stability. It's connected to it. So, at least that's my experience. So by surrendering at least to the cold shower, or if you already do yoga, you surrender to the moment. I think maybe that's where they got the whole no pain, no gain. But this isn't about gaining or losing anything. There was never anything to gain in the first place. When we're born, you have nothing. You got into this body and it's temporary. It changes form as you get older. And you get older and you get older until you die. It just goes from nothing. Right? So really we own nothing. The fact that we own things is not true. There's nothing to own. There's nothing to keep. There's nothing to make permanent. It's all, but a lot of times we do the opposite. We kind of escape from it, and we just like we relinquish it, and you say like, I don't want these things. Money is bad. Dark emotions are bad. They're bad. All that conditioning from the past, right? It's polarity. All that on its own creates resistance. And I didn't really realize that until like this year. So, or at least starting to realize it this year, because there's still things that it's never ending, and it shouldn't be. That's the truth. That's the thing. The learning process is never ending. So, anyways, so I would say let go of fitting in. Just try to be in. You don't need to fit in. Just be in. And accept the differences, accept the whole thing. And I think that's my thing. I don't know. I'm not trying to give you real advice here, but for me, I've learned to just say, okay, we're really just different. But it's when I say okay, it's not because I'm really okay with it. It took time. One of the things we have to continue to learn is trying not to try. One, trying not to try. Number two, the trying that we think we should try or try to do is looking for an end result. That feeling comes through when you start to surrender, but look for, at the very least, like material or physical sort of like concrete sort of ways to it's not really about grounding anymore. It's really like to surrender. I'm not saying cut off a leg. I'm not saying go shoot yourself in the head. I'm saying there are good things in life that help us to be more, it's training the body. It's training the body. It starts with the body. It really does. At least for me, it really does. Because it's, when you train the body, it's the one that's it's connected to the subconscious area of the brain. As a language teacher, this ties in with the whole fluency thing, which makes sense, because it's like, I had this conversation with a student when it comes to like sleeping. The reason why we resolve a lot of things when we're dreaming is because when we're in dream state, especially when we're in deep sleep, I believe it's the REM state, rapid eye movement, we start to, we go into theta wave, I believe it's called theta waves. And what happens is that we're in this like really like natural state. Like I say natural because it's like the subconscious. It's older than the rest of the brain. And subconscious is like near the back here. So when we go through that, when we're sleeping, the subconscious knows what to do. It's just because it's so old, it's primordial. Well, I wouldn't say primordial, but kind of, yeah. Right? And so it's super old. It's the oldest part of the brain. That what's called the reptilian brain. That's where it starts. And so it helps us process things, because it just knows there's an intelligence about it. Right? We have to honor more of the subconscious so that we can go past the conscious to the superconscious. And I'm using astrological terms here, because when I say superconscious, I mean like high intuition connection. We can't go up there. You can't fly a kite without the kite. You can't you can't go up there without coming from down here. And actually vice versa too. Right? Everything is connected. Everything is a circle. Everything's cyclical. Everything is just, it's flowing. There's always flow. We have to let it flow. And I think it's a little challenging for a lot of people still. Even myself sometimes, where I question where I'm at, because there's that desire, there's that ego desire to like go into the future, go into the future, go into the future, go into the future. You know, because we've been conditioned, or we didn't know, and that's okay. We've been conditioned to believe in the fantasy of what this means, of what it means to be spiritual, what it means to be this, or what it means to be that. We have all these labels, and when we have all these labels, we kind of break it down so much. I think we've broken down things way too much. And I think I'm just speaking for myself, because I believe that through my own rawness, I understand what I need to go through. Not necessarily know, but there's an understanding there if I just trust it. So again, going back to the whole, what helped me, what has helped me, like I've done the yoga thing, I've done the swimming, I've done training before, I've done all these things, but now it's more like I needed to, or I wanted to actually, I wanted to feel something that was different, that will help me ground myself. I don't know, I just felt like this calling. Like, I did a search, I was typing on, what was it? Not Google, I didn't choose Google. Anyways, I was typing it online, I was doing a search. I typed in, like, that man with the man who can walk on ice or run on ice. And it came this, like, website. It was like Wim Hof, and I was like, who's that? Is that him? I saw pictures. Then for some reason I got, drawn to this site called Commune, and that's when it started. I took those 5 first 3 classes, and I believe I paid for the other 5, because it was like full 10 or 11 classes. Excuse me. And it was just like, that changed everything. It helped me to be more grounded. I love it when it's even colder. That means it's almost like, yes, it's kind of like numbing, especially during the winter time here, because it's the wash shower is like really cold. But it's not about the numbing, it's just like surrendering to it. It's like the nature will teach you. It's like, just allow for it, trust it, because the water will not damage you. That's why there's a limit to it too. Like, you don't want to go, oh, I'm just going to be in the cold fucking shower for like 20 hours. What? No. Right? So, obviously not. Your body will tell you what to do. But there's a difference between the body telling you what to do and your mind creating stories. So, anyway, so that's helped me. That helps me. It helps me also be raw. That helps me to also, many other things to learn from. It's a continuous, ongoing journey. So I just wanted to share all that. You don't need to fit in, just be in, and you'll start to appreciate those things. But again, that's for me. Gratitude is also part of that thing too. I learned not to really jump the gun in terms of gratitude. Like, I'm already very grateful for what I have. And it's, I feel like I don't analyze things anymore as much, but if I were to if I were to explain it to you guys, it's just being present and being like conscious of it. There's a connection between that and really appreciating something for what it is. Appreciating that there's a form that's already here. There's like this body here. It's not a thought, it's a feeling. Gratitude is actually a feeling, not a thought. It's not wrong to say, oh, I think it. This isn't about right or wrong. It's just not a thought, period. Gratitude is an energy from the heart. That's why it starts from there and it expands. But I feel like without the discipline of the cold shower, or at least the method itself, because the thing about the method is, if you've seen it, it's the way I've seen it, is like, when you do the breathing, there's a bunch of benefits to it. One of them is that it opens up the nerves, the capillaries here. It opens up the whole body, right? You become more sensitive to the temperature around you. And that in itself, combined with the consistency, literally like every day, little by little, that in itself, with the capillaries opening up, the blood becoming more alkaline, and then the consistency every day, and then the oxygen in your brain, and then the whole, like, you just feel like this beautiful energy, just like, it's just wow, right? As Wim says, he's like high on your own supply. I love that one. And you do the cold shower. Actually, they do warm first and cold. And if you do it gradually, whatever your body's telling you, like, 5 seconds for the first day, it could be 10, it could be 20 seconds, it doesn't matter. Point is, it's your body that whatever it can take the first day. Then you just do it the next day, and 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 the next day. And eventually you get used to it. But that's the thing with habits, right? It's sometimes, I keep hearing this, like when people say, oh, it's like creating habits is like just starting it. It's not really that easy, but it's also not that hard. I think one of the key elements is, one, it's a decision, and two, we listen to the natural limits of the body, even though we still make a decision. And it's a combination. Because sometimes when you decide something and it doesn't resonate with you, sometimes it's not really about the fact that it's not resonating with you, it's more like just the timing. And when I see timing, and Eckhart has mentioned this before, he said there are times where sometimes it just takes getting sick of the past stuff. It's getting sick of the things that don't work anymore. It's getting sick and tired of the things that just don't help you heal, that help you elevate, that help you become whole. You just feel toxic. It just doesn't feel like your life has direction. So by doing all that whole, I've lost my train of thought. So the point is, you just do it, but you have to also listen to the body. It's a connection. It's a connection. So I don't know how to formulate it yet, but all I'm doing is like sharing with you guys my story. So fitting in, don't fit in. Or try to fit in, but then you start realizing the pain, that if you force it, it might just be like, wah wah. This is from one of the, who said that? Was it one of the drag queens in RuPaul's Drag Race? He said, wah wah. I totally forgot who said that. Not hydrangea. Oh, for those who, if you know RuPaul's Drag Race and the old shows, it's a very ego thing as well, but I think RuPaul's intention there was to help us shine still in a certain way, but it's very flamboyant, not necessarily flamboyant, but it is teaching us something, because it might trigger for a lot of people, because there's a part of themselves that they're resisting their own flamboyance, their own fagginess, their own gayness, right? See, so funny how the word gay, the word fag, for me, it's like has become this more a stronger word, not necessarily like empowering or strong, but more like, yeah, because at the very least I've done some shadow work with that. So anyways, so you have to go through the process. For me, I went through the process, and you learn from the process as you go through the process, and you have to be in the process. So anyways, I'll see you guys later. Thank you for watching.